Hello and welcome to the sound booth here at Abbey Road Studio number 1. We're just about to record a session, but first of all I'm going to be waiting for the flautist Chloë Vincent. She's played with Madonna, Kanye West and Michael Kiwanuka. I mean, she's even played with Billie Eilish at the Brits and The Who at Wembley Stadium. And if that's not enough, she's going to be here talking everything about flutes today. So I've always wondered, I know, but I've been an orchestrator and a conductor for a while. What is the main difference between a flute and a piccolo?
Well, normally a flute is made out of silver or silver plated, whereas a piccolo is most often made out of wood.
And they look the same?
No, piccolo is much smaller.
Why don't you get your instrument out?
Okay.
Yep, I'll get you a chair. Bear with me. Here we go. There we are, the flute and the piccolo. So please tell us the big difference between the two instruments.
Well, I think you can see it's probably size. The piccolo is obviously much smaller and also has a narrower centre.
Okay.
Because of this, a piccolo sounds one octave higher. So often in orchestra it's used kind of right at the peak in film. Film scores, things like that, can add a real kind of moment of wow.
Can you just play us the difference between the flute and the piccolo?
Sure. So the range of my flute. Quite high.
It is pretty high.
Yeah. However, piccolo, that's my lowest note. Very high.
Wow, and very loud.
Yes.
Okay.
Not always what you want first thing in the morning.
No, absolutely not. But tell me something. When you've learnt the flute, can you then transfer those skills to the piccolo?
You can. Most people start on the flute to kind of get the basics first. Piccolo is a little bit more difficult because, as you can see, the hole is much smaller. So you have to have really precise lip position or embouchure to find the right sound.
Now you said a complicated word there. Can you just tell us what embouchure is?
So embouchure is the shape that you make with your lips when you blow your instrument, and we use that for all wind instruments.
Okay. And there's a specific shape to blow your piccolo, and is there a different shape to blow your flute?
The shape is the same, but we need a slightly smaller hole or airstream to blow the piccolo, so we get a nice clear sound, because there's such a tiny window for error here because the hole is so small. With the flute, I normally describe it as about the size of a pea. Should be how small the space between your lips is. On a piccolo, even smaller.
Oh wow, so really tiny.
Yes.
And is it the same fingerings that you use to make the notes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a couple of exceptions.
Okay, so theoretically, as long as you can produce the sound on the piccolo in terms of get your airstream small enough, then you should be able to play both instruments equally well, or roughly.
Yes, in theory. I would say piccolo is slightly more difficult in terms of tuning. Often because you sit at the top of the chord, you normally get the blame if, for example, a bassoon might be a little bit sharp. Often they'll say, piccolo, you're out of tune, and it's almost never us, I would say.
No, I don't know about that one. So that's made of wood, that's made of metal. Yes? Why?
Well, as you heard, the piccolo can be sometimes called shrill. If it was made out of silver, they do exist. In fact, they do even exist being made out of gold. But they're very, very, very piercing, and most people would find that sound not quite right. It also means the piccolo can blend with other wooden instruments such as oboe and clarinet.
Strange thing to say here, but you may notice that I'm barefoot. I tend to conduct barefooted, and I can see that you've got some very sparkly shoes on, similar to my sparkly jacket. Tell me something. This has got something called a foot joint, but the piccolo does not.
You're absolutely right.
Well, blow me down. Look at that. Why?
So we have a couple of extra notes. On the flute, on the piccolo, the lowest note is a low D. While as on the flute, we have our low D, but then we can also play down to a low B because we have these extra length on the instrument, which obviously makes the sound a bit lower.
But why can't you get a foot joint for the piccolo?
Well, you can't get a foot joint, but you can get a piccolo that can play a low C. I believe there's only one in the country.
Oh.
Because Britain liked writing for low Cs on the piccolo, and some of his operas use low C.
Yeah, so just to clarify, that's Benjamin Britten, the composer, not the country.
Good point. So it does exist, and you can get instruments in between these two, which are played in flute bands, things like fifes, but these are the standard orchestral sizes.
Great. We've ascertained that the piccolo is a bit more tricky to play than the flute. So can you just do a bit of showing off for us and show me what you can do on the flute?
Sure.
Oh, that sounds very difficult. What about the piccolo?